Right, another episode, Thorin and Loco versus Worlds. In this one, show brought to you by GG Sport, that site that actually accurately predicted who would win the semi-finals, because they use cold hard facts and analytical metrics which don't care about your pitiful human feelings, attachment to a scrap of land with imaginary lines drawn on it, or where your dad happened to live for the last 60 years. It just goes with a computer and goes, Thorin, Fnatic will shit on C9's face. And then I go, well, that's rather rude of you, GG Sports Robot, Statistical Matrix. But you know what? You're right. And I will bet my play coins, which can be to win gems and exchange them for RP. And when I have that RP, I'll go straight away and I'll buy a Victor skin and I'll pretend to be sneaky and get my shit pushed in the bottom lane. And there you go. We're all happily ever after, out of the semis. So anyway, let's get to the important shit here, which is our guest is veteran, coach of H2K, but we don't hold that against him. He's allowed to be right about other things. On this show, we brought veteran on for obvious reasons, because of all the times where you need an obnoxious European person, it's got to be when EU is actually in the final of fucking Worlds. And this is the craziest part, Loco. It'd be one thing if they got to the final and they were playing Katie Roaster. They were playing RNG. They're playing a team they've already won 2 out of 3 games against and actually are probably, by some people, favoured to win. So let me ask you this first, Loco, before we go on. Does the robotic, cold-hearted bastard that is GG Esports actually predict Fnatic to win this series?
So, nope. If you bet 100 coins on IG, you'll get 158 back. If you bet 100 coins on Fnatic, you'll get 240 back. So they do think Fnatic is a decent underdog.
Okay. Wasn't expecting that. I was thinking it'd be closer to sort of like a coin flip on that one, but okay. Right, veteran, first reaction there.
What a terrible website. Jesus Christ.
Well,
it's a free win, guys.
It's okay.
It's a free win, guys, if you bet all your coins
Yes.
on Fnatic, and you should sign up and do that right now, and then buy Victor and cosplay Whippo and win every single game.
Yes, that would be the better way to use Victor.
You know, I'll say one thing about like these kind of betting websites. So GG Esports is a non-cash website. You can't get cash, but like in like actual like sports and stuff, what happens is if you are so good about predicting and you're so good about setting odds and you bet against these websites and you make millions of dollars, the websites will come and buy you out. So the websites will always have the best odds due to they have a shit tons of money, and if there is someone that's consistently beating their system, they'll go and buy them out. So, yeah. I mean,
Remember? Go on.
Remember what?
Remember that if you want to be the best at prediction, to do it every single year, you just bet on the best region on the planet's best team to take it all every game, full stomp. So from now on, just bet on Europe, bet on Fnatic, bet on G2 next year, bet on whoever on earth it is, and also bet on Cloud9 making out the group stage, because unless Fnatic is in there, they apparently cannot not make it out every single goddamn year.
Yes.
So just always bet on these 2 things, and you'll have all of that money. It's all good. Sign up now.
Basically, just use all the narratives to your power. Rather than for evil, just use them for good. Yes.
Katie disappointed. Cloud9 made it out of groups. RNG could not beat Yanko's
They tried
or
raising the
again.
poppy, just ended up raising the poopy.
Yes.
That's all they were able
true.
to do. Just raise a bunch of poopy. Right, okay,
EDG
what are this?
knocked out of quarters again.
Right, veteran.
It's impossible.
Wait. I actually have one more
Come
thing
on.
to say. So
There's
There's
going to be a lot of chance to say a lot of stuff, but this isn't the end of the
this is
episode.
relevant to what I was saying.
Come
So,
on.
There is someone that actually did this, where they were like, "Hey, these esport betting sites are shit. I can do so much better," and that's Noah Winston. So I'm not sure if I have the site right. I think it might have been Vulcan Esports, but
Yes.
Noah was doing the betting thing so much better, and he was just destroying that site. That site
Yes.
was like, "Okay, we need to go pick this guy up." So they went and talked to Noah. And Noah's like, okay, I don't just want to do this betting stuff. I'm like really smart and I want to start a team. So he got a lot of investors and he made Immortals. And they did really well for a year. But yeah, like if you genuinely do think you are better than the websites and you think you are smarter, keep beating these websites and they will reach out to you if you genuinely are that way, and you can own your own LCS team.
And then in the end, Noah Winston was like, right, and now we're going to get into franchising. Fuck. And then they're like, what? We invested all that money. We gambled on you, and you didn't even get any LCS. And he goes, well, you win some, you lose some. Do you want the Overwatch League? And they were like, who the fuck wants the Overwatch League? And then that was the end of that story. So in the end, what I'm saying, kids, is you don't always win. So at least enjoy your experience. At least pick the people you want to see win and have fun with that.
And enjoy it on this specific website.
Yes.
Which I can't remember the name.
GG Esports.
Exactly. Don't worry about it. As long as 2 out of 3 experts on this show say that that's the site, then that's a pretty good ratio. That's enough for cat food. So, and doctors with cigarettes back in the day, which actually weren't good for you. Probably shouldn't have given that example, but whatever. It's too late now. Don't smoke cigarettes, but if you want to, do go on this website. There we go. I've fixed it. Don't leave that in editor. That's fine. Right. Let's start here. Loco. Being as we know where Veteran's going to go on this one, you got to preempt him. Do you actually think IG's going to win?
So I'm also really lost, but when I'm lost, I look to GG Esports to guide the way.
No, right. Seamless. Yeah, keep going.
I'm not
Keep going.
fucking joking. I'm not fucking joking. It's these websites.
Okay.
I don't lose anything when I
Right.
lose. I what is it? Maybe LS will be rude to me on Twitter. Maybe some idiots will be
Okay.
rude to me on Twitter. But
Yes.
when they
Almost certainly.
lose, they lose a lot, right? They lose
Yes.
a lot more than me, and they have
Yes.
a lot more invested than me. So I actually look to them and I take their stats and their odds, and I try to make analysis based off that. And IG does have some dank ass solo lanes. So
Come on.
yes, because Veteran is just gonna endlessly talk about EU, and someone has to stand up against Europe. I'm gonna go with IG win. I think IG will
Can
win.
we have some reasons?
I mean, I think solo lane and jungle matters the most in this tournament. And IG has better solos, and I don't think they have the better jungler, but I don't think Ning is that much worse than Broxah. But they, for a fact, definitely do have the better solos.
What do you think, Veteran?
I think we've already seen this matchup, so it's really pointless to say a Fnatic win. The solo lane aspect of things, we didn't actually see a really good matchup for Caps versus Rookie last time, but even then, Fnatic show that they are actually able to play with Caps behind. Because they have such discrepancies on the lanes, but also in the EDG series, I talked about this a bit on Narrative Wait, go check that episode, that show is all really good, about how Fnatic were able to adjust their playstyle between Game 1 and Game 2, and they realized this was going to be a full series where they weren't going to be able to get Caps for sure ahead, and whenever Caps was behind, in large part due to matchups, but also, in fairness, in that series, he did play out a lot of matchups poorly. They actually found a really good way with rotating Whippo and sticking him on the side lane for tempo, and saying to Caps, okay, we're going to call this a dead lane, and you are just going to play purely around these pockets that our top lane matchup is going to give you on LeBlanc, on Irelia, on these champions that he's really good at making picks on, and you are going to help us this way. You're going to make the team fight 4v5, and then we're going to group and we're going to pressure something. And because they've already shown that they can play with their solo laners behind, and they've shown that they can adapt in the series for specifically how particularly Chinese teams are going to try to abuse certain aspects of their solo laners, I'm actually really confident that they're not just going to win because they have 5 better players and better side in the game like they did versus Cloud9, but they're going to win because they are the most adaptive and the smartest team coming into this tournament, and then definitely out of the 2 teams that are left. I'd be willing to bet that they're going to win with macro.
Excuse me, have you seen the 2 games that they played where Ning and Baolin were, as you like to say, non-human beings? Ning and Baolin, ever since groups, have been human beings, and Fnatic actually have to play versus 5 players now, not just 3. Like, you cannot, expect Ning and Baolin to play that bad again.
Yeah,
They
but I
haven't
can
played-
definitely expect. Yeah, but have you seen the level that Box has been playing on?
Broxah
Like,
has been
okay,
damn
so
good.
I
Broxah's
actually
been damn
honestly,
good.
I honestly cannot say that I remember like quarterfinals to the extent that like they weren't playing like humans, or if you're specifically referring to the group stage, I don't
Yeah, I'm
necessarily
referring
think
to
that they were
groups,
playing
in
like sub. Okay, I don't necessarily think that they were playing like subhumans. I just think that
They were so
Fnatic
bad.
Fnatic are really good at drafting pressure lanes in bot and playing around that with jungle to get the initial pressure they need to play around mid. They're really good at doing this. They are the team that heavily prioritizes picks like Braum. They're heavily prioritizing really strong matchups for Boxer, and they know how to play out these early game scenarios. Now, this is not even something that they were able to do in European playoffs. In European playoffs, their early game setup was actually still pretty subpar, and this was a worry of mine coming into the tournament. But now they are very good at playing this aspect of the game. I don't necessarily think that Ning is just going to be able to come in and walk all over them like he was able to do versus G2, for example. Like if both junglers are playing the way that they were playing there, I don't necessarily think that he's going to be given as many options Fnatic are going to give Boxer, and I think Boxer is very good mechanically 1v1, not just on Lee Sin right now, at being able to play out these matchups properly. So I'm not completely worried about that.
What about this then? I've got a few angles we can take on this one. So Loco, if you think IG is going to win, I would ask you this question in light of the fact that we did see 3 games between these two teams. Is it not a concern to you that Rookie basically did very well in those games? Everything was looking fucking great for him. He's supposed to be the best player in the tournament, best player in the matchup, and they didn't manage to win those games. Doesn't that concern you?
Well, it doesn't concern me at all, because they were literally just playing 3v5. Ning and Baolin was so bad. They were just so fucking bad. Like, he actually has a jungler. He actually has a support now. Why Fnatic won was due to Hylissang and Broxah just being able to help Capt a lot more, even when they were behind. And, like, Ning just not doing anything to snowball a 30 CS lead that Rookie had. Rookie had fucking 30 CS lead, and he just got way too much interference from jungle and support, while his jungle and support basically were non-existent. So yes, like, I'm not afraid at all.
I don't think that Baolan was playing that well in the quarterfinals, and I definitely don't think that IG play jungle support on the same level that Fnatic do. I think Fnatic
definitely don't.
I think Fnatic are better around the map. I think jungle support usage is a huge deal of why they are better around the map than IG, and I don't see that having changed. I think Ning had an incredibly good series, as I said on the last show, which you guys should go and check out as well and get more views and go for GG wherever their thing is. I do think Ning had an incredible series, as I explained there, but I don't necessarily think that means that their mid to late game jungle support setup is still on par with Fnatic's. I just don't think that's true at all. I think Fnatic are better around the map, and I think, as Thorin says, we've already seen them play from behind. And if Ning is going to smurf and get his solo laners ahead like they already were in that series, I still think that's not going to matter once it comes to mid to late game. I think Fnatic is a smarter team.
When have the games been really determined, like mid to late game in this tournament? I think
Fnatic versus EDG.
Where EDG were the more scaling teams, but I think for IG and for the tournament in general, like tournament average game on like 30 minutes or 32 minutes now. Like,
I disagree that EDG had that Fnatic had the more scaling team than EDG.
No,
EDG did.
EDG
okay.
in general
and
are
then
the more
EDG
scaling
lost mid to late game while they were giga ahead in the early game.
Well,
They are terrible.
yeah, I just don't think mid and late game thing matters that much right now. Like, games are being determined in the window of, I would say, probably like 10 minute, 15 minute. That window is like probably the most important. And then the leading up to 15, 20 minute for Baron is like where just things like get cut and dried. Like,
Then Fnatic should be out of the tournament. But they're not out of the tournament because they're better
What?
around the map.
No, they're not out of the tournament because they're damn good fucking early and mid game. You don't think they're good at all early mid game?
Did you watch the Fnatic EDG series?
Fnatic EDG series?
They got stomped early game. It wasn't even like they were legit like 905k goal behind early game. All of those games, EDG was smurfing all over them early game with a better scaling team. But they are worse around the map than Fnatic. Fnatic were absolutely winning those games mid to late game. What you're saying is just wrong.
I actually do. I will admit saw the EDG Fnatic games a while ago, and I would have to go back and watch. But my point being is, Fnatic's been strong early and mid game, and that's why they gotten to this point. Yes, they have good rotations. Yes, they are also good mid and late. But the core of this tournament and core of the meta has been about early and mid game. You're stating Fnatic's mid and late game for the reasons that they are gonna. But I'm saying that isn't going to be as relevant as early and mid game and how these teams are going to match up.
The difference is I'm saying this has happened. This didn't just happen versus EDG, by the way. Do you think that they were ahead versus IG early? Do you?
Versus
They
IG,
won, by the way.
Rookie was behind, or not Rookie.
Caps was behind. Rookie was giga ahead, and they were playing a tempo
behind. Rookie were giga ahead, and they've one bottom dive fucked up a lot where Rookie had to throw his lead, but You really
Like
think
what you're
mid-
saying is literally only true for the Fnatic Cloud9 series, by the way. Like for all of Fnatic series, it is only being true for the Fnatic Cloud9 series that they have just been smurfing early and winning the games off that. What you're saying otherwise is actually not being
No,
true
okay.
for the entirety of Fnatic's run.
Okay, my point is Fnatic's early game and IG's early game, like early to mid game, is what we should be looking at. Not so much Fnatic's better mid and late game, and that's gonna matter a lot. I'm not saying Fnatic's bad mid and late game team. I'm saying that part doesn't matter as much as the early mid game and how these teams are matching up.
Right, what about this then? So since I gave Loco the tough question like that, here's one for you then, veteran. It's like whether or not you agree that the Fnatic players have worse solo laners than the IG players. I think most people, the general community consensus is they would say so, especially because everyone was raving so much about the Shy after that semi-final against G2. In a world in which Fnatic goes the same approach they did against Cloud9, they play Bwipo in all these games.
Yeah.
Like, you know, some of those games, it sounded like you didn't necessarily agree with some of the drafts they did. So do they not have to themselves play heavily around the solo lanes in this particular matchup?
This is really interesting, actually. So I did say that I thought that Red Side would decide the G2 IG series, and I was incredibly wrong about that because the way G2 drafted around Red Side was nowhere near the way that I thought that they should. I do, however, think that the way that Fnatic drafted around Red Side will net them advantages versus IG on that regard. But equally, the way that IG understands blue side could potentially be an issue when it comes to the picks like Fiora. Because one big thing for me is that IG did ban Victor every single game versus G2. So say they take a similar approach versus Fnatic, and then they go for an opening flex. They go for their Aatrox, they can go for their Jace, even if you ban your Irelia, Akali's, and all of this stuff out. They actually have a lot of things they can open with on flex on blue side. So then it becomes a case of, can Fnatic play these ranged matchups with Bwipo that don't just involve the permanent Victor priority? And the answer is yes, they can. We saw this with Cloud9. They did Jace into Aatrox, and they were perfectly willing to rotate the Jace between either top or mid. I'm convinced on that fact. Mm-hmm. So I do think that red side's still going to be a big factor for who wins this series, who has the more red side games. I would be interested to see, with Victor removed, if we are going to see the Fiora from IG and what Fnatic's answers to the Fiora is going to be. I would be interested to see if maybe IG go for the first pick Victor themselves and what Fnatic's answer is going to be, because again, I actually think there are some melee matchups that you can potentially do into the Victor, like the Irelia. I also want to see if they would potentially do the Lissandra matchup. Maybe they've actually witnessed this in solo queue, but it's been spamming a lot. But I do think that it's basically going to come down to, we're going to see two teams that came into the semi-finals understanding the meta properly. And we're basically going to see which team has the more flexible solo lanes. And the thing is, I say it's going to come down to this because I honestly believe that if Fnatic get a better draft, they'll win, and if IG get a better draft, they'll win. Because I don't necessarily think that such a heavy mismatch in the solo lanes.
If you think the series is going to come down to whoever has the more flexible solo laners, aren't you already siding with IG?
I don't necessarily agree that IG have the more flexible solo laners. It could potentially be equal.
Make that argument for me. You think Fnatic solo laners are more flexible?
When you say flexible, what do you mean by that? Like wide champion pool or what?
Yeah, so basically the only big thing that I can see that IG have that Fnatic don't have is the Fiora, but I don't necessarily think that that's going to be a power pick. So I don't necessarily care about that. I do think that they can both flex the Jace. I think that they can both flex the Aatrox. I think they can both flex the Akali, the Irelia. I think that they can both play Victor in both lanes potentially. I don't really see why you would put Victor mid, but I think that they are both coming in playing the Victor. I think this idea that IG have a deeper champ pool than Fnatic is actually a meme. I don't. What champions do you think that they're going to bring out?
I don't think they necessarily have deeper, but can you even make the argument that like Shy on Jace or Rookie on Jace compared to like Caps on Jace or Bwipo on Jace is somewhat comparable?
Versus what?
Like Rookie and Shy on champions like Jace versus Shy and Bwipo on champions like Jace.
Yeah, but we're not doing a blind pick scenario, because the thing is, I think if you get either of these two players on Aatrox versus Jace, the Jace will win both times.
Yeah,
if
but
it's
like,
if it's the Shy versus Bwipo, Aatrox versus Jace, Bwipo will win. If it's the Shy Jace versus Bwipo Aatrox, then the Shy will win.
Okay,
so
that's not what I think on better matchups, the better player will win. But what I'm saying more so is like, say on blue side, Fnatic or not blue side, on blue side, Rookie and Shy, like them flexing Jace, like they're not gonna. IG from red side aren't gonna draft like shitty champions into Jace. They are gonna take matchups that are gonna be competitive against Jace. Like in that case, where IG is counterpicking Jace with competitive matchup versus where Fnatic is counterpicking Jace with competitive matchup, it smiles way more so on IG side than it does on Fnatic side.
Which is why I think red side wins.
But okay, red side wins. We already get that, but don't you agree that in these cases where blue side is getting the good blind picks or flexible blind picks, like IG is gonna be able to perform those on that, perform better on those.
I think if IG can first pick the Jace, for example, and it's a situation where it's good to first pick the Jace, I think both teams are capable of doing that.
And you don't think the counters from IG are gonna be better than counters from Fnatic in terms of like the level of play that's gonna come out?
No. I mean, okay, this is the thing. When you say levels of play, do you mean, do I think Fnatic will lose with some of these counter picks, whereas IG wouldn't lose with some of these
where
counter picks?
I think it might be a situation, let's say for like random ass reason, like let's say something like a Teemo can be competitive with Jace, but if you have to play it at absolute top tier level, I think IG are able to play that at that top tier level required, where Fnatic might not.
I think any champion that IG can play, Fnatic can play aside from potentially the Fiora.
Okay, well, the question I'm asking is, do you think the level of play will match? Because like certain champion picks, certain counter picks will not function unless like the level of play is matched, or it will be different in the game.
They will both win lane on the same matchups, but I think Fnatic will do more with that because they're better around the map.
Oh.
That's the thing. So that doesn't come down to like a mechanical thing there. And the thing is, I think that the levels on which IG's players are potentially better than Fnatic literally don't matter because they're going to win the lane anyway. And I just think that Fnatic have a better understanding of the map and will be able to transition that better, especially when it hits mid to late game, which I know you don't think matters, but has mattered in every single matchup. Fnatic
no, I don't. It's not black and white about mid and late game doesn't matter. Like I'm not.
Because if it was black and white, by the way, Loco, it would be severely against you because the games have been purely decided on that and have not mattered about early leads when it's come to Fnatic versus Chinese teams.
Okay.
So if
oh my god, I'm gonna explain
this.
this point. I'm gonna explain this point. When early and mid game matters, what I mean by early and mid game mattering more is games are being decided more so there, not games are only being decided there.
Yeah, but we're talking about this specific matchup. That's the thing. And in this specific matchup, you are very much overrating it. Like, we're not talking about a blank slate. There are 8 teams left, and you can then therefore say early game's going to matter a lot. We're talking about Fnatic versus IG.
Veteran, put it this way. One of the things that I think has been the most impressive about Fnatic at this tournament, which I could not have anticipated, is that everyone who didn't watch Fnatic much thought, right, it's just a Caps show. Caps has to go ham, he has to get leads, he has to have all the matchups. And actually, it was exactly the opposite for the entire Worlds, basically. He didn't actually have that sick of Worlds, generally. If you're looking like whole laning phase, all the he didn't have that many games where he was like, put it this way, unless he does something insane in this final, I think Rookie's already got the MVP of this tournament. Like, I would never give it to Caps at this point in time. But think how insane that is, that Fnatic actually played around their best player, often losing early, not having great lanes, and still come in, I mean, okay, apparently not to GG Esports, just to Western fans, as potentially the favourite for the whole tournament in the final. That's kind of fucking insane.
And I do think that the two biggest factors for this have actually been Broxah and Bwipo. I think how they are playing around Bwipo's tempo has been their way out of all of their early deficits, and a large part of that is jungle support, and Broxah is the guy that has really stepped up. So I'm sorry that I am not really mentioning Hylissang by name here. It absolutely is like a duo show there, but Broxah has also been the reason that they've even had tempo early, because Hylissang's not able to do what he usually does, which is get Caps ahead. That hasn't been effective this tournament.
One thing I do want to speak on regarding like the MVP comment that Thorin made. If Fnatic wins, I think MVP goes to Broxah, not Caps or Bwipo. I think Broxah has been the single most important player, single most crucial player for Fnatic. And if IG wins, MVP goes between the Shy or Rookie, but I think Rookie will get it due to the storyline.
I wouldn't complain if it went to Broxah or Bwipo. That's what I was saying. That I don't really have much of a preference. So like, you can have arguments either way. To be honest, I don't necessarily think it's a clear-cut thing.
Well, here's the thing, okay. Even though I know what you mean on that sense, I would by default then say it should be Brox's, since at least he played all the games.
Huh.
You know what I mean? He did play more
Sure.
games, so I mean.
Yeah,
I think- I think-
Whippo. Yeah, okay, but then you're talking about a scenario where all games have equal value.
No, I'm
Where-
just saying. I think if you look overall, he probably had more good games than Whippo did.
Yeah, but again, like that would be a scenario where all games are equal value, and it's like Whippo was the guy that was their focal point in games where the early game didn't go so well, and you could potentially put that on Blockster, but these were more important games. Like they don't make out that.
Sure, but here's
win on
an
every
angle that
conversation.
I'll take, because often in other games like CS:GO, I have
Sure.
to pick the MVP. One of the problems here is Whippo couldn't look bad in the games he didn't play. You know what I mean? He had a smaller sample size.
Yeah. I agree with that, but
That's just
also-
one criteria people sometimes consider, you know. So
No,
anyway,
I agree with that, but I would also say that those were games that didn't matter.
to some degree, yeah. Well, here's an angle that is an interesting point, though, is that one aspect that both of these teams have in this final that no one at the moment's thinking about because of how the semis were played out, is both of these teams have a legitimate rotation around top lane, and they both play the top laners to have a different approach to the meta, to generally play more towards the tanks. So will we see either Duke or Soaz in this series?
I think if we see either, that team already lost. If we see Soaz, I think Fnatic lost. If we see Duke, I think IG lost.
Oh.
Because here's the thing,
Okay.
Loco, I'll give you a spoiler now. Veteran actually is in the same camp as me and Kelsey, that he actually thinks, aside from this one meta, that Soaz is better than Whippo.
But we are in this one meta. So I think if either team backs down and puts in their tank player instead of their carry player, I think they already lost.
You know what I think? Okay, so I think that the reason why Whippo seems to perform really well in this meta is because if you have... Okay, so I previously said that whenever they played Whippo, even if Whippo was on Sion, that they always played really hard to top, right? I call this Vizzy syndrome, in the sense that he has to take the trade no matter what, regardless of like what enemy jungler situation is. And there were scenarios in the EDG or even in the Cloud9 series, actually, in the Cloud9 series, where I thought he was actually very vulnerable to a Svenskeren gank, but for whatever reason, Svenskeren wasn't necessarily going for it, wasn't recognizing the situation. I thought he was overextending after he'd actually bounced top tower. There's a very specific thing that I have in mind on one of the blue side games on Victor, when he'd actually bounced the wave, and then he continued to harass even though Svenskeren is in the Tribush top. And I think that Whippo's tendency to do this is actually fine in this meta if you're playing hard to top, because the advantages you get if you flip the coin there and it works are going to matter so much more than they would in any other meta. But on the flip side, I think Soaz actually knows his limits in this sense and will always play intelligently. And I think if you're playing at the absolute highest level and you want a reliable carry, I think Soaz is still going to play that well. But it may seem like Whippo plays better because Whippo is going to take more trades and really push limits. But a lot of these can come down to enemy jungler mistakes. And I do think he takes trades in scenarios where he perhaps shouldn't. And he's getting away with that in this tournament. But I would put it to you that if they were to sub in Soaz and they did have Soaz on a carry, I actually think that they still win that game.
That's
I'll
fine.
actually-
That's
yeah.
fine. That's what I mean, though. If they put in Soaz and Duke, and they're just playing carries, and they're giving the other carry player a tempo to reset, but I think if
Playing tanks.
no,
Yeah,
playing
they play
carries.
tanks is the first.
Yeah, if they put in Duke or Soaz, and they're playing tanks, they already lost. But if Duke and Soaz
Yeah.
come in and they're
Right,
also
I
playing
see.
carries,
Okay.
and then
Yeah.
they're letting Whippo or Shy get back in for fifth game to play carries, like kind of like IG did versus KT, where IG lost by like 2 Fiora autos, and they're like, okay, Shy, your brain is boom. We're gonna put in Duke, and then you go play carry in game 5. But yeah, like tanks in this meta, it's really hard to drive, and the tempo is just too fast. And later in a 1-3-1 situation, you become fucking useless. So yeah, like make sure carry players stay in. Make sure the best carry players are playing, and they are actually playing carries.
Sure.
Now, even though we alluded to it earlier, Like, Loco, if you actually think that IG wins, don't you sort of have to make a case against Broxer, the player that every single playoff series you've been looking at the stats and he's like rated number one?
He's still global.
Right, by the way, everyone was ripping on Loco for this, but like Loco admitted in an earlier episode, Veteran, that when he actually saw like the soft stats they have on GG Sports, like, you know, overall ranking of carry ranking and stuff like, obviously that can't literally be determined by a metric, it's like a formula. He actually contacted GG Sports, like, your formulas must be wrong here because it's saying that this Broxer guy is like the number one player in the world. And then he even admitted, like, you know, later on he was like, yeah, actually that was pretty good actually. Whoever like made that fucking formula, like that did work out.
No one ranked. Okay, I wasn't alone in ranking Broxer low. Wait, Veteran, would you have called Broxer the best jungler at the tournament? At the start of the tournament?
Yeah,
so you would pick score, I assume, right?
On the narrative wake episode, I do actually remember specifically talking about Broxer and saying that I think that the way, well, I think I said it wasn't just necessarily side against Broxer, but I said that the way that Fnatic play jungle, I actually don't agree with, and I think gives away significant advantages in the early game. And obviously that has changed in a lot of games, not the EDG series, don't you dare. For Broxer actually being able to carry a lot of these early games, particularly against 100 Thieves, for example. Everybody remembers his plays are actually working out really well there. So obviously he's evolved from that, and he isn't the exact same player that anyone expected coming in.
Fuck you, Thorin. No one thought Broxer was that good. ESPN didn't even put them on his top five jungler list.
First of all, don't you ever in this house ever refer to an ESPN power ranking as some sort of a like real world reflection of anything other than the mental illness of people who think narratives are better than actual reality. Like, you have to understand, they're the sort of people where it's like they just say something like, SOAS has made it to another Worlds final. It's like, shut the fuck up. That means nothing in the context of 2018 Worlds. Like, what, he made it to Season 1 finals. Like, but he lost the last one. Maybe he'll lose it. Like, shut the fuck. Get out my house. Like, you don't need to be here right now. You are literally the sort of person who's just like making these, like, that. Basically, ESPN reminds me of, in like, you'll see this in American football and football in England.
Oh my Lord.
You know when there'll be an FA Cup draw, Veteran, and they'll just be like, you know, the last time Stokesley beat Man United was in 1969. It's like, none of the players are playing, and there's no context to that matchup whatsoever. Like, we're not turning any narrative. You know, it's like a totally different match. Like, that's ESPN. Anyway, you've triggered me on EPN.
Dude,
now.
fuck you.
Bring it back.
You
Bring it back.
about historical stuff all the time. I remember when CLG EU made finals. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure with you, but
yeah,
along the line you said something like, what is it? There has no foreigner hasn't beaten a Korean in an OGN tournament since like Guillaume Pactry. Like, you talk about historical things all the time. How can you rip on?
Do you know the difference there?
What's the difference?
Yeah, you know what? Veteran gets it. I actually put context in, which is why I bring up the historical part. They just bring up a historical detail like you would when you get to the end of a fucking Snapple and you see the thing. Ooh, look, tigers are dead in India now. Like, that means nothing to eating, drinking a fucking drink of Snapple, does it? You know, like that's how they do it, Loco. I'll bring up something that means something.
We got really fucking sidetracked, but my point was.
Yeah, in short, TLDR, fuck ESPN.
No, the point was, it wasn't just me that thought Broxer wasn't that great of a jungler, or he was a more supportive role. Everyone did, so fuck you, Thorin.
Anyway,
I love it.
The question is in the final.
I also have to say, by the way, I love it that I go on Narrative Wake and we talk about the game, and I come on Loco's Worlds Analysis show and we talk about narratives non-stop. I love it. I just love it, by the way. Yeah.
You have to understand, Veteran, I'm actually, I know what the fuck I'm doing, mate. I'm playing both sides of the equation. On Narrative Wake, I'm like, fucking narratives. This is all just bullshit, isn't it? Let's analyse the game. And then everyone's like, yeah, I hate that actually. I'm not going to watch this show. And then on this show, right, we go with all the big storylines, arguing, and they're like, they don't even watch the fucking games. Why aren't they talking about the draft? It's like, all that matters, though, is I'm getting all the views. I'm getting the views of people who are like one side, the views of people who are like the other side. I'm getting the views of people who just like seeing Loco for some reason. I don't know, there's still a lot of people out there, so there's some people in the scene, you know, die-hard fans, we call them TSM fans. I notice, by the way, Loco, we're so godlike, we even resurrected TSM fans to actually start talking out during this Worlds. They're not even relevant at this Worlds, and they were getting their moment.
Because I fucking defended them on the show, because, what is it, you guys just shout on them for no reason. Like, oh my god, it's so
Loco, I will say this though, mate. I will say this. You know when we did that episode, Greatest Team to Go to Worlds, and I picked Fnatic 2018.
You randomly. Oh my fucking god.
Oh, veteran, how do you like that? We did an episode, right? It was called The Greatest Team to Ever Go to Worlds. And before Worlds began, I actually said this Fnatic team would be the greatest Western team to go to Worlds.
Okay.
Do you want to know the reason why, veteran?
I want to get
Veteran.
context. Oh my god.
Do you want to know the reason why, mate? I gave the reason why as they could play through all lanes and they had the most versatility, especially because they could substitute their top laner. Not bad.
And you're almost right. They
Not
can play
bad.
through top and they can play through bot. So
Yeah.
you're almost
Okay,
right.
but what's so fucking annoying is like, oh my god, monkeys like you will dig up like when you were right. Like when we did Thorin and Loco shows before, I was like, will the gap ever close between Korea and the West? And I fucking was on the side of what is the gap closing for the West, and that West would eventually catch up. And I'm right about that. But I don't bring that shit up because like I'm not.
You just did. You just
Cause
did.
you fucking brought it up, you idiot! Oh my fucking god! Like you're so
Doesn't matter.
petty.
Doesn't
oh,
matter. You just did.
You're so petty.
Exactly,
Thorin.
Loco.
I only bring
That's-
it up when you're being petty.
Exactly. I made you come down to my level, and now I'm beating you with experience. Like, you have to understand the way I do this shit. Like,
Oh
you,
my God,
You'll
it's
never be classy against me.
It's
You can't do
so fucking funny, Thorin. You're like 40 something, and like you get satisfaction.
At least 50
of, like
at this
trolling
point. Yeah,
idiots
I
on
do.
Twitter or
I
like
love it.
being
Love
right
it.
like once in every 10 times. Oh my fucking god! Like grow the fuck up, Thorin. Grow
Loco,
up.
all I'm going to say is this, mate. When you pick TSM to be the best at anything that involves this worlds, you deserve what you get, mate. At that point in time, you deserve what you get. Well, how many times do you have to be wrong? Like, if TSM ever did anything at Worlds, you'd go mental, mate. You'd fly a fucking
I'll say
banner.
this.
You'd order skywriting for Reginald outside. You were right all along,
and
Reginald.
until
Yeah.
due to how much Andy has supported me, until Andy
Yes.
like spits on my face, I will support TSM till forever. And
Tell you what, I'd love to see that day.
You picked a TSM team?
yeah.
He picked TSM 2016, baby.
Okay, it's not.
That
oh
team
my
was
god.
so overrated.
Oh my god.
wow.
This is such hindsight
Yes.
analysis.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, I
No.
was calling. I really wanted to meet them in the quarters
Yeah.
if they actually got out of groups because that team could not play without double lift playing side lane. They were incapable of playing 1-3-1 correctly, literally physically incapable, and they never actually had to not do that in North America outside of that one time against Phoenix One, and they got stomped. It was so obvious that these guys would collapse if they weren't winning all their lanes.
I
It was
love
so
how
obvious.
veterans like it was so fucking obvious that this would happen. It was so
I'm on
fucking
record. I'm
obvious.
on record saying this at the time, by the way. And I thought I was going mad headed into Worlds, and then they couldn't even get out of groups, and I was so fucking. No, I'm on record saying this, by the way. You can find me saying this about
Okay.
it. They cannot play without double lift playing side, and it's the
Yeah.
incorrect way to play.
Here's the
Oh
thing,
my
Loco,
God.
don't worry, there'll be other worlds, mate. Better luck next time.
Anyways,
my
can we
lord.
get back
Yes,
onto IG
yes.
versus Fnatic?
Okay, back onto IG versus Fnatic. Here's a question for you, though.
Yeah.
So we've obsessed so much about the jungler and the solo lanes, right? Do you actually think the AD carries it? What impact will they have on this game?
If the game goes to team fights and like as Veteran has been saying, like mid and late game actually does matter. I think AD carries play super.
Welcome to my
significant role.
side.
If it gets to that point, AD carries matter a lot. And I will say, in terms of explosiveness and like actually being clutch in team fights, there's no way you can say Reckless is better than Jackie Love in terms of being clutch and in terms of being a bigger factor in.
Now watch Veteran do it. Go ahead.
So
I don't think you're
first I
familiar with this guy.
First, I do disagree with the assertion that AD carry is going to matter a lot outside of which AD carry does not int. But because I honestly think that the mid lane matchup, the team fights are going to be decided before that because the mid lane is going to pick off one of the other two. Watch this happen in game, Loco. The mid lane is going to pick off someone before the team fights, and the team fight will be 5 versus 4 in someone's favor. That's how all these games have been going, by the way. Note that and watch it happen. And then in terms of Jackie Love has more playmaking potential than Reckless, great. This guy's been playing Sivir, the other guy's been playing Xayah half the fucking games. Great. I wonder why one of these two players is having more playmaking
I
potential.
wonder why Fnatic's putting Reckless on Sivir, because maybe they trust him to be more consistent and not trust him to be playmaking. It's not like these players randomly end up on these champions. They, like, the teams are like, hey, you're good at this, so you do this. Like, of course, like, fucking he's put on Sivir for a reason. You think, like, they flip a coin and they put him on Sivir?
You think that it's not a good way to play the game right now over perma-pushing bot and mid and top? It's
Where
actually
am
just a
I
way to-
disagreeing with that? You're bringing up the point that Reckless can't make can't.
No,
Because you're
it-
saying
it-
he has to. No, because again, you're saying
Yes.
he has to, and this is again the same scenario as before. You're saying, but G2 has to. You cannot therefore say that they don't figure out that this is actually a good way to play right now.
Well,
Absent
they
of the
arrive
fact that they
at
may
that
have to push
conclusion.
it there.
Let me
Yeah,
flip
right
it,
to that
Loco.
They might have the
Loco.
conclusion, by the way, that kind of playmaking doesn't matter.
Yes.
By the way, it fucking doesn't.
What about this,
YG are not
Loco?
hit.
It definitely matters less, but we're on the topic of ADs.
You are
we
saying
talking-
ADs are you are saying ADs
Yeah.
are going to giga matter mid to late game. I'm saying they're not
Why-
because it
when-
hasn't the
when
whole
did-
time.
When did I say they giga matter? I said, okay, holy shit, you're taking things out of context. The
I
context
said
is,
mid lane will matter more than AD. Do you agree?
yes, mid lane will matter more than the AD. But
Okay,
the
then we
topic,
don't disagree. There you go.
okay, we don't disagree, but the topic is, will the ADCs come into effect? And I answered that topic as, if mid and late game are pretty even, or if early mid game are pretty even, and we get into mid and late game with team fights, then yes, AD carries will start coming, start mattering.
Loco,
Hmm?
I've got a
Yeah,
question
nice.
for you here, mate. So, that what Veteran was doing was you're both spinning the same thing the opposite way. You're saying to him, well, why do they put Reckless on Sivir if he can carry? And it's like, well, Veteran's answer is obvious. Is, well, we don't need to play through Reckless, so why would we need to? But then the question to you then becomes, Loco, if they always have to put Jackie Love on fucking Zaya and Kaiser, doesn't that suggest something about him? I mean, he is playing on a team with solo lanes.
I think Chinese ADCs have a, I would say, bias or almost what's the right word? Familiarity towards
comfort
hyper
for them
carries.
to play them,
Comfort
yeah.
to play these hyper carries and to be on those champions, and they love
Okay.
being on those champions.
Yeah, and I think it's bad. So,
Okay.
if this guy's on the Ezreal, Kaiser, Lucian like he was in the G2 series, and he's going to be able to do more plays, maybe. But my point is that mid lane's going to matter more and decide the team fights. And then
Damn.
your reaction was, in team fights! Like, yes, because the team fight will be 5v4 because of mid lane.
Oh my fucking god! You know what the hilarious part is? All these analysis won't matter, and just depending on if IG.
Oh, mine
wins-
will, because that'll actually happen.
No.
So-
Okay, if IG wins, the entirety of NA
He actually,
will just.
here's the thing,
Yeah.
Loco, he did actually, that was quite funny actually, he did kind of do you there, because when you just said like, all these analysis won't matter, he's like, well yeah, yours won't, because it's right, so that was pretty good, you can't lie, that was a good
But it's
rebuttal.
gonna
yeah.
go down two ways. IG
Okay.
wins, and Veteran gets shit on, and Veteran, everyone's like, oh, how could you predict Fnatic to win? Oh, mid and late game, blah blah blah. If Fnatic wins, then people are gonna fucking whine about my analysis being wrong.
Of course.
I think there's valid points being made on both sides, and I think there's disagreements. But
Yes,
Reddit
there's some
is-
very fine people on both sides.
Yeah, I agree. But this is why I'm really specific about it. So even if I'm wrong, I can just clip where it was 4v5 because somebody, probably the mid laner, made it 4v5 beforehand, and that decided the team fight.
Okay.
And
He
not
built in a
one
trapdoor,
montage
yes.
highlight of Jackie Love on Zaya versus KT, as if that was what decided the whole series.
Okay.
Anyway, oh my god. Veteran, I will admit you have good points, and you brought up better arguments than other people.
I
in
will
the
admit
past.
that too.
Oh my god. What's up with European people and being cocky? Are you guys not taught basic Oh
I mean,
my
we're about
god.
to win the world final, so
Loco.
something about it.
Yeah. Loco, I've told you this before,
We won
mate.
world finals 4 or 5 times as Koreans, so go fuck yourself. We're not cocky. Even Koreans, after we win, we're polite. You guys
Loco.
are perks after he wins. It's
Yeah.
hey, Cocky, come sign me.
I told you this on the TSM Worlds episode, right? First of all, Koreans, it's different because they don't have to have the same outward approach, right? But I actually legit think one of the reasons Europe outperforms NA every time is that so many NA players are mind fucked into believing they can't win. Whereas even if the European player is delusional, he actually does believe that, I've told you, all the mid laners in Europe really believe they could beat the Korean mid laners. That's not a joke. They think, no, it's just the Korean guy's team's better or his jungler's better. They actually do, and so it gives you a puncher's chance at the very minimum. You know, I think that's a real thing.
The way I like to say it is that if you don't actually think you can do this, you're not actually going to try. So obviously, think you can do it, and then you can actually start working towards doing it. You're not allowed to give yourself the excuse of, well, I can't do it. These guys are just too good.
Okay, I'm not
Never allow
talking about
yourself
that. I definitely believe that too. So whenever we go against teams that might be better than us, the mindset is always they're still human. they still have to control these champions, and their champions have limitations. And if you guys do the things you practice correctly, like, we're gonna fucking win. Of course, that should be your mindset every time. I'm talking about you and Thorin's like smugness and like cockiness and like rudeness and.
That's because you're saying you're doing it from a position of we drag these guys down to a human level, and we're doing it from a position from maybe this guy is a god, but I'm an EU mid laner. Like, that's a different mindset. That is a different mindset with a lot less fidelity.
No, it's just completely two separate. Where you can be confident, you can be cocky without being a fucking asshole.
Vitality have reinforced their way. Vitality have forced their way here with mindset. Okay, like, it does matter.
No,
like,
I think no mindset is good. Like, okay,
yeah.
Go ahead. Or, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, just on the human versus like the cockiness side, like if you go into the game and you're like, these guys are human, and then they stomp you, like Cloud9 got stomped first game.
My God.
You're like, okay, maybe these guys aren't human, or maybe I'm subhuman at this point. You know? But if you go in thinking this guy's a god, but I'm an EU mid laner, and then they stomp you, you're like, all right, this guy played god, like whatever. I'm still an EU mid laner. Let's go into the next game, and I'll be an EU mid laner. The distinction does matter there. The distinction does matter there, I think, from a mental aspect.
The distinction that I'm mentioning is like being rude, being like overly cocky, or being like just negative as a person and unpleasant. Like, I'm on your side regarding.
Do you want to know something, Loco?
Buying into the mindset.
I've got to tell you this, mate, right? This is where you've done that convenient thing where you're like, oh, but on my passport it says I'm Korean, so this is the way we Koreans behave. Like, that's not who you are, Loco. Every other episode, you were bigging up NA, and I can tell you something. I've been around in esports for 17 years. I'll tell you what happens when NA gets on top in any game for however brief. They never stop fucking talking shit. And if you ever say anything like, hey, be humble, they say like, oh, fuck off, whiner, just because America's on top. Why are you jelly, bro? Why are you jelly?
That's what I have problems with. I don't think NA should do that either. Like, you can be confident, you can be like cocky, and like you can win, but like, what's with this obsession about being like smug and like unpleasant and negative?
That's just a personal preference and playing out our own insecurities through wrecking shitters from NA. But anyway, here's the thing. Every day I wake up, and no matter how bad I feel, I go, well, at least I'm not a North American. And then my day's started off great, and I'm off to going around and swinging around lampposts.
You wish you had a green card. You wish you had a green card.
What are you on about, mate? There wouldn't even be a North America without my fucking country, mate. So anyway, enough of that. Right, back to the point at hand. Now we have to do the prediction, okay? Now we have to do the prediction.
I wonder who better is going to predict. Oh my God, I've been looking forward to this the whole show.
The question isn't that, it's what scores are you going to predict?
Okay.
Oh,
so, Veteran, who are you going to predict for this one?
Fnatic.
What score, though?
Say it. Say 3-0. I dare you.
Say 3-0? Yeah, so I was thinking whether I'm just nice to IG and say 3-1. Yeah, I'll just say Fnatic 3-0. If you can win one game, you can win 3 games, so...
As Jack told us, yes, in his infamously illogical statement regarding TSM versus Samsung White. So anyway, Loco, who do you pick to win this one, mate? You said IG, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be 3-1 IG. I'm on the side of reality. I don't get, like, veterans just... EU people, when it comes to EU teams, become a little delusional, as you guys can see with Thorin and Veteran here. I think it's going to be 3-1 IGs. I think strong solo laners matter a lot. I think Ning and Baolin not being subhuman creatures like they were in groups is going to matter a lot.
Okay.
Fnatic beat IG.
I like how he's on the side of reality, but in reality, Fnatic have already beaten this team, so...
Fnatic, yes, they beat this team playing a 5 2 times. They won in a 5v3.
You know what's great, Veteran? What's great?
They were literally playing 5v3. You don't think Ning and Baolin were playing?
Are you ready, Veteran? This is what you call setting up a trap for someone to walk into. Because I don't know if it was in this episode or the one that we did about the semis, but I explained to Loco a concept earlier that he has again failed to understand, which is when someone's bad and they get better, then you don't go, fuck, they've got better, they'll always be better, or maybe they'll get even better. You go, wait a minute, if they were bad most of the time and they were better briefly, I reckon they probably level back out to being bad again. In Loco's mind, that can't happen. Everyone's, it's like a fucking episode of Naruto, and everyone's learning abilities and improving, you know. I'm going to go ahead and say that those players who I've seen do some bomb-ass shit, even in the LPL, go back down to being bombs. So, unlike that, I think Fnatic actually has played well, even when they had problems in the game, as you said, Veteran. Even when Broxah had bad starts and actually not great matchups, they've played through Caps not being so good. So I'm actually going to go against GG Esports this time. And even though, by the way, the two solo laners I have a lot of respect for on IG, I think they really could go ham and like win a game for them at least. Yeah. So I'll say Fnatic wins either 3-1 or 3-2. I don't think it's going to be 3-0 for anyone personally, but I'm going to say Fnatic wins because they're the only team in this matchup that could win in theory through most lanes, that could win in all portions of the game and in most styles. So if they lose, I'll take off my hat and say IG was better, great. I also think bizarrely, like I alluded to at the beginning of the episode, it's kind of nuts that the Western team, let's face it, there's no Western teams, it's a European team. Not NA gets no part in this. Get the fuck out. You all predicted Cloud9. You don't get to take part in this final. I'm going to say that the European team, also, I never thought this would be possible, has a fucking psychological advantage going into the final. That's so insane to me that I think if you're Fnatic, you could lose, sure, but I don't think you come in with any thought in your mind that you're going to lose. So I think actually this is the best chance ever for West to win Worlds, Europe to win Worlds rather. I think they will. So
Yo, veteran.
3-1 Fnatic.
Okay. Do you think head coaches have an important impact on teams doing well?
Yeah, Young Buck definitely does on Fnatic side. We're talking about the series for sure.
What about Dylan?
You mean NA's representative over in the finals there? First North American, by the way, at all to reach the finals because he figured out where the real talent was. In fairness, as most North American orgs already have and continue to learn every day.
Veteran, you've got to loop this back in, mate. Here's the thing. I'll tell you, Loco wasn't following League back then. So what happened is this young guy called Dylan Falco came over from TSM and he joined Fnatic, right? And he tried everything he could. He taught them everything he knew about League of Legends and they were okay. They were actually not that great. They were kind of chokers, you know, they couldn't win. And then what happened is a European man came over and said, listen, North American guy, you kind of just go back to being an analyst. I'm going to take care of these things and do everything I'll say. And all of a sudden, it was all working out great. So, what was your point again about Dylan?
Young Bucks, the improvement Young Buck made to that team is insane. And I do have to shout out to Young Buck because I actually ended up spending way more time than I ever expected I would have to do defending Young Buck when G2 dropped him because all the comments were that he was carried, even though Young Buck had actually won EULCS not with Sven and Miffy, but with fucking Emperor and Hybrid and kick his top lane. Like this guy actually has a good record outside of the Sven Miffy thing. But the thing with Youngbuck is that he always finds the exact niche he needs to fill within a team, no matter what that role is. He can be your absent maid, he can be your strategic presenter guy, he can be your VOD review, he can do your one-on-ones. He'll find that niche and he'll dedicate himself to that niche. And I think that's really important because there are way too many coaches who come into it thinking we have to do things this way, even without assessing what the team actually
you have,
needs
what
first.
pieces you have, and what you have, and being flexible.
What you need to slot in and what the missing pieces are. You know, you have to adapt yourself into being that missing piece, and Youngbuck always does this. And I think that it's full props to Youngbuck that they make it this far. Full props to Dylan that they made it as far as they did last year, but that was quarterfinals. And now they're all the way at the finals, and I do think that would be impossible without Youngbuck. So.
There's also on the other side, though, Loco, there's another side to the equation, which I'd actually forgotten about. Not only is Europe going to beat China and IG, but a Korean coach is also going to fuck up the finals. So, it's unfortunate. Your boy Kesman.
Kesman, yeah.
Oh. See you, mate. More like fucking says what, man? Because he's going to be crying.
Wait, Kesman already lost. Kesman's on RNG.
Oh, fuck, I forgot that one, yeah. Who am I thinking of then?
You're thinking
Who's the IG
Mafa and
one?
Kim. Mafa and Kim. So Kim
yeah, that's right. Wait a minute. A former KT player is the coach. I'm going 100% against IG. This motherfucker only knows how to lose finals. He was born to lose finals. He's gonna be like, Dylan Falco, you were merely born in losing finals. No, you merely adopted losing finals. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see Score win a final until 7 years into the game. By which time it was, I don't know, fucking blinding or whatever it was. You know the quote. You know the Bane quote. We all know that. Come on, Loco, you gotta have a better reason why they're gonna win than this. Come on. Aside from that, we're all smug and European.
That they're gonna win because they have better solo laners.
That can't be enough, dude. You know what?
And 2 players not fucking inting their faces off is not enough of a reason.
The problem is, Thorin, that it all comes back to everyone rewinding the video and checking, did Loco agree with Veteran when Veteran said that Fnatic's jungle support works way better than IG's jungle support? Yes, he did agree.
But you keep...
No,
they're gonna rewind and they're gonna go back and check. What if it... Did Veteran quote Fnatic beating IG in groups mattered? And what if it... That's one of his reasoning? Of course you fucking said that. And they beat them playing 3v5. They're not gonna play fucking 3v5 this time.
Wait, Loco, let me ask you a question. Okay. Why aren't they gonna play 3v5?
Because they haven't played that fucking garbage since the groups. Like Ning and Baolin found how, like, they learned how to be human again.
As
if
we
you
all
learn
know,
how to be human, you can learn how to be an animal.
As we all know, Wadid and Yankos are some of the best 2v2 jungle to match up against.
I know. Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's indisputable, to be honest. It's just everything's just coming up IG.
Doesn't matter. When IZ wins, I'm just gonna laugh at your face. Oh my fucking god. I'm gonna laugh at both you guys' faces.
Yeah, we'll do a FaceTime right after the final shot. We all three patch ourselves in and see who laughs in whose face. Okay.
Better actually,
I agree with it.
Better. I actually have to commend you. You came on the show, and you just said crazy shit, one crazy shit after another crazy shit, so you can get an invite back onto the show. That was actually strategically.
They always say it's crazy,
very
and then I'm right, and then they keep saying it's just crazy.
Better and like very well played. I understand you want to be back on the show. We'll have you back on the show for
a strong LS-esque performance there.
Reaction for finals. I mean, you got me. I thought you were being reasonable, but now it all makes sense. You wanted to be back on the show. You just had to ask. You didn't have to be reasonable during the whole time to get back on the show.
I love coming back on the show and laughing at
oh my god. I mean,
my god.
You have one invite. You have one invite back onto the show. I mean, being crazy worked. Like, I was just trying to figure out, why are you being so crazy? Why are you being so unreasonable? But it all makes sense. Holy shit, that's what you were going for. Oh my god, good angle. You got me good.
The cognitive dissonance is really strong in North America.
Well, here's what we'll do. Veteran, what we should actually do to make the memes truly real and to end this episode on a high is we should host another episode after World's Finals where again we discuss who was the greatest Western team of all time. And Loco has to make real points for whoever he thinks it is. Yeah, I think that's legit. Because remember, he says, Veteran, that he's not biased against regions, that he just judges the game in reality. So
2016,
exactly. So it'll just be like a mad celebration of Fnatic 2018 for like an hour.
You said Fnatic 20. You went easy on him, by the way. You said Fnatic 2018. We've sent CLGEU, Moscow 5.
No, we weren't counting.
No pre-LCS though. No pre-LCS for them. So
no pre-LCS. No. Okay. We still sent Gambit, so cut low key.
Okay.
Right, we'll send it on that anyway.